Welcome, everyone. I'm Katie Richardson, Vice President of Clinician Relations for AngelMD. I am excited because this week our pitch club is going to be about companies with innovation in gastroenterology and urology. And for this week's pitch club extension video, I am super excited to have Vicky Farrar with me, who is the CEO of Lightline Medical. Vicky, I can't wait to hear all about your innovation and your technology. This seems super exciting.
Great, thank you. I'll share my screen right now. Hello, everybody. I'm Vicky Farrar, the CEO of Lightline Medical, and we are using visible light to prevent catheter-associated infections. I have one question for everybody. Are you afraid to go to the hospital? You should be. Hospital-acquired infections is a huge international problem. In the US alone, annually they cost close to $20 billion and cause 100,000 deaths. Most of these events are called never events. They should never happen, and therefore they're never going to be reimbursed. But on top of the lack of reimbursement are staggering penalties in the hundreds of millions of dollars. These superbugs, they thrive in and on catheters. So why? Why can't the world fix the problem? Chart on the right. As antibiotic-resistant organisms are on the rise, the drugs to combat them are on the decline. We have the solution. It's called the Lightline Phototherapy system. We are using visible light, that's 405 nanometer light that the human eye can see. There is no antibiotic resistance issue with visible light. Significantly, it's not UV light. UV light degrades catheter materials and is toxic to human tissue. Our technology consists of two components. You can see a reusable light engine here connected to an off-the-shelf catheter. Inside the off-the-shelf catheter is a disposable fiber optic that we etch. Where we etch it, it is going to emit the visible light inside and outside the catheter, sterilizing and disinfecting it, thereby preventing infection. This will be the first technology for all infections: dialysis, urinary, vascular, and respiratory. So how does it work? Light is made up of energy called photons. These photons are then absorbed by peripherins and excite them to create reactive oxygen species, the most common example being hydrogen peroxide. The reactive oxygen species then damage the bacteria's lipids, proteins, and cell membranes and cause them to die. We have lots and lots of in vitro data that's available, but I'm getting right to the pig study. What we did is we put Foley or urinary catheters in pigs. We then inoculated them with an infectious amount of ampicillin-resistant E. coli. On necropsy, here's what we found. On the left, the bladder of the pigs that had no light, you have dark red lesions, severe inflammation, and an infection from the bacteria. Light treated, there is minimal, almost no inflammation or redness, and there is no infection. But we then took those catheters and examined the exterior surfaces of them. Upper right quadrant, those that had no light, that is literally a raging infection in progress. And those that were light treated here on the lower right, there is no bacteria, there is no biofilm, and there is no infection. First, we're putting our technology in a peritoneal dialysis catheter for several reasons. There's a huge clinical need. It's generally understood worldwide that peritoneal dialysis done in the home is better for the patient's quality of life and clinically than hemodialysis, which is done several times a week, several hours at a time. Then how come? How come in the United States, 89% of the population is on hemodialysis and not peritoneal dialysis? Here's why. They're scared to death of getting an infection, and we can fix that. But another important reason this is our first product is because we're putting our technology, the fiber optic, in a portion of the catheter here that is called the extension set. It is outside the human body and does not touch tissue. As a result of it not touching tissue, to get 510(k) clearance by FDA, we do not need animal or clinical trials, so it's an expeditious pathway. But next is what I call the Holy Grail. We put our technology in a Foley or urinary catheter to prevent catheter-associated urinary tract infections. This is the most common infection in the world. It's expensive. It too is a 510K, but it's a de novo 510K. We'll need animal and clinical trials, and that's why it's product number 2 and not product number 1. But also, there's no effective competing solution on the market. We know that silver catheters don't work. Silver degrades over time. But we also know that over 700 hospitals have been fined in the United States more than $400 million for having high CAUTI rates. Here's where we are. This is a snapshot in time. Right now, we are using our Series A funding to put our first generation peritoneal dialysis catheter on the market. It will be on the market approximately second quarter of 2022. Our funding is being used to do our GLP FDA testing and obtain clearance. Next, we will begin work on the Foley catheter. And for the next year, we will do a small animal and clinical trial in order to set us up for a successful pivotal trial that would be done in 2023 to 2024 when we'll launch the Foley catheter. And then next we will launch the endotracheal or peritoneal dialysis generation 2 product. The generation 2 peritoneal dialysis catheter, the fiber optic will go inside the body into the peritoneum past the 2 Dacron cuffs. Thank you.
Well, Vicki, this, like I said, this is very cool. And you mentioned that this technology uses visible light. So that seems a little crazy to me. Can you talk a little bit more about how that works? And sure. How do you protect that from a patent perspective?
Sure. So visible light has been around forever. Anybody watching this can Google visible or blue light, and you'll see that it's been around forever and its efficacy has been known forever. However, it has been typically used for dermatology, and it has never been used before inside a catheter, inside a body cavity. So you can't patent visible light because it's a natural phenomenon, but what we did patent is the method of delivery. So we have a very early priority date that covers our technology in all sorts of patents, and then we drill down and cover specific aspects of our technology.
Great. You also talked about, I believe on your timeline and maybe a couple of other times, other indications for this technology. I want to learn more about those and how those are going to work in these different parts of the body and clearly places where there are also high rates of infection.
Sure. So the delivery method will be the same for each of the technologies, meaning we will use a reusable light engine and a fiber optic inside the catheter. However, the intensity of the light that is emitted will differ. Example, in peritoneal dialysis, we're going to put the fiber optic in the extension set, as I mentioned, and we're using high intensity, short duration testing. So it'll be done in 20, 30 minutes while they're doing their dwell time. That is very different than the way it would be used in the Foley or urinary catheter. That will be targeted for the most immunocompromised patients. So those in the burn unit, transplant unit, ICU unit, where the doctors can literally predict that they're going to get a CAUTI. There we will use lower intensity light over a longer duration. Example, the light may emit for 8 hours on, and the patient's just sitting there lying there in the hospital anyway. It could be 8 hours on, 8 hours off. It will differ. Endotracheal tube we have not yet gotten to. And by the time we get to vascular, which you do not see on this chart, I am confident the company will be sold.
Well, tell me a little bit more about your exit strategy, because I saw this exit sign on here. I'd love to hear more about that as well.
Sure. So as I mentioned, we have 4 different fields of use, and for each field of use, we have an opportunity to either do a deal internationally or domestically. So that's 8 potential exits. Example, Fresenius is a dialysis company. They don't want our urinary product, but they may want dialysis, and they may want it both internationally and domestic. Bard, BD, may only want urinary. Someone like a Teleflex may want all of our indications worldwide. So the way we look at it, this is a fabulous exit opportunity where we have literally 8 potential exits.
Wow. That is very exciting. So one last question for you today. Tell me how the AngelMD network specifically can assist in getting this exciting and important technology to the market.
Sure. We're actually working with one AngelMD physician, Dr. Macaluso, who some of you may know. He's been a great advisor for some time. We are now putting together a scientific advisory board, first for our peritoneal dialysis catheter, where we would very much like to talk to some nephrologists that would be interested in being on our board and helping us develop the product so we make as few mistakes as possible and it has its greatest clinical impact. Our next advisory board will be for the urinary or Foley catheter, and there we would love urologists. Secondly, while we have an exclusive distribution agreement in the urology field with Medline Industries, the largest private distributor in North America, we do not yet have a partnership for the peritoneal dialysis product, and we would very much like one with one of the strategics. So any help in either of those areas would be great.
Fantastic. And Vicki, as I said before, I could see this technology being used a lot in pediatric peritoneal dialysis. So I'm definitely going to connect you to a few of the nephrologists at Children's Hospital here in Colorado. I'm super excited for you. Thank you so much for being here with me today and sharing Lightline and your amazing technology with us.
Thank you. Totally enjoyed it.